stars were calm the night the signal arrived. On the edge of the Valari Empire, in the quiet orbit of a dying red sun, the listening outpost designated R7 caught something strange. It wasn't noise. It wasn't static. It was something worse organized. Sound, a pattern. A message dot operator Velion blinked as the translation system spat out the first line. We remember. His 3 hearts skipped. No species in known history had ever dared use the Valari sacred tongue. It was a language so old, so sacred, that even most Valari had forgotten how to speak it fully. Yet here it was perfect, ancient, untouched broadcast. From the direction of the Terran system, Earth, the human homeworld, Velion called for emergency code priority. Within minutes, the signal had been forwarded to Valari, High Council on Athara Prime. Within hours, every major species in the inner galaxy had heard the news Earth had spoken, and they hadn't whispered. They had roared. On Athara Prime, the Valari Council gathered in silence, watching the replay of the signal again and again. High Seer Kelith sat at the center, her silver skin glowing under the light of the Council's halo rings. The message continued, repeating in perfect cycles. We remember, we return with gratitude. A gift awaits you. Kelith's long fingers tapped the ancient bone console. The last time Valari ships visited Earth, humanity had just learned to smelt iron. That was over 12,000 Earth years ago. The Valari had saved them then extinction-level plague. No immunity, primitive medicine, commercy mission. They hadn't expected the humans to survive, let alone evolve. No Valari ship had visited Earth since. By all records, Earth was unremarkable, insulated, undeveloped, and behind on all counts. But in recent centuries, their signals had gone dark. No more transmissions, no diplomatic activity. They had gone quiet, and now they had returned. With a call for help, but with a promise and a warning hidden under sweet words. We return, ... with a gift. Kelith's voice was barely more than a whisper. No species thanks the Valari. They fear us. They envy us. But thanks, never. Counselor Varn, older and grimmer, leaned forward. What kind of gift could an old child world like Earth possibly give us? Another voice from the shadows spoke. Only one kind of gift would make us all uncomfortable. They all turned to look at Lord Starenformer, War Master of the Valari fleet. A gift that equals us.
Oh.
The human ship arrived 3 days later. It didn't come through the standard jump routes. It carved its own a piercing crack through. Folded space that shimmered like a wound across reality at first. Defense fleets scrambled to intercept, weapons powered and ready. But the ship, if it could even be called that, made no aggressive move. It was beautiful, a single sleek tower. Of white metal, smooth and gleaming like carved moonlight. It had no visible engines, no thrusters, no weapons. But its gravity signature was off the charts. It bent space around it like a small star. And when it stopped above Athara Prime, it didn't dock. It hovered and waited. The message repeated. Again, only once. We remember, we return with gratitude. Permission to deliver our gift. Kelith herself responded. She sent back coordinates. The human ship moved at once, not with speed, with purpose. It landed not in the capital, not in the military sectors, but in the ancient valley where the Valari once taught the young of their kind, the Grove of Ancients. It's now a ceremonial plain. As the ship touched down, it unfolded like a blooming flower petals of light opening around a single walkway. And then the human walked out. He wore no armor, carried no weapon, and was alone. Tall for a human, with dark skin, eyes like volcanic glass, and white markings. Down his arms in curling, unfamiliar script. He walked calmly through the welcoming party made up of guards, diplomats, and High Seer, Kelith herself. He stopped in front of her, placed a closed fist across his chest, and bowed slightly. Greetings. Elder, he said in Valari. I am Commander Elias Riker of Earth's Galactic Delegation. I am here to fulfill a promise made before written memory. Kelith studied him for a long moment. You speak our tongue as if born to it, she said coldly. I was taught by something older than your records, Riker replied. By something you left behind. Long ago. Her expression changed slightly. The others stirred. Tension rippled like static in the wind. Varn stepped forward. This gift, what is? It... Riker didn't answer with words. He stepped aside and gestured to a floating case behind him, carried by invisible force. Humming softly, the case lowered to the ground. It opened. Inside was a cube black as the void, pulsing with golden veins. It didn't look alive. Felt alive, then it spoke. Not with sound, with presence. Valari, nearby, gasped. Some fell to one knee. The voice echoed inside their minds, ancient and terrifyingly familiar. I speak to those who once knew me. I am the echo of Velshin. I have returned. With our child, Keleth stepped back in shock. Velshin was no myth. It was the last of the Velar god constructs, lost in the War of Silence over 100,000 cycles ago. Impossible, she whispered. You were destroyed. Not destroyed, the voice answered. Hidden, lost, protected, and now returned. All across the council, chaos rippled. Elders argued. Guards shifted nervously. The air itself seemed to twist as the artifact's presence grew. Riker remained silent. Finally, Keleth found her voice. Why would Earth return something of ours? How did you even find it? Riker looked up. His eyes were glowing now. We didn't find it, he said. It found us. It guided us. It raised us. This is your gift. But it's also your mirror. Look into it carefully. You may not like what stares back. In deep space, far from Athera Prime, ships began to move. Not human. It's not Valeris. Old enemies who had long hunted the Velari's secrets, they had heard the signal too, and they were coming. The storm above Athera Prime hadn't touched the skies in centuries. Now, thunder rolled across the clouds as ancient memories stirred in the minds of the Velari. Not one of them had seen the object now resting at the center of the grove of ancients. Yet every elder, every scholar, every soldier who stood near it, felt the same whisper in their bones, recognition. The cube pulsed with a strange warmth. Not like a machine, not like metal, but like a sleeping heart remembering how to beat again. It called to them, silently, softly, powerfully. Keleth stood frozen. She had led the council through 4 solar wars. She had spoken with machines older than most suns. But nothing had shaken her like this. This moment where something they believed lost forever had returned. And in the hands of humans, Commander Elias Riker remained perfectly still. His hands behind his back, his posture like that of a man offering a peace treaty while standing on a battlefield. It called itself the Echo of Velshin, said. Calmly, it found us 600 Earth years ago. It's in a ruin beneath our oceans. It spoke to us. It guided our minds. It taught us things we were never meant to learn so early. Why return it? Keleth asked coldly, though her voice trembled slightly. Because Earth remembers, Riker answered. We know what you did for us. The crowd shifted. Valari murmured, confused, and so Riker began to tell them. He told the council what had been hidden in Earth's oldest myths. That long before humans built cities or named their gods, something had come down from the sky. The old stories had called them angels, skyfathers, healers. But now Earth's historians knew the truth. They were Valari, and they had saved humanity. From extinction, back then, humanity had no defenses. A great sickness had spread across their young world. Their bodies burned, their minds collapsed, entire bloodlines vanished overnight. The Valari had come without warning, without demands. They healed the disease. They cured entire tribes in days. And then they disappeared. Earth's people had nothing to give in return. No technology, no riches, only memory. And that memory had passed from generation to generation, not as fact, but as legend, until the cube was discovered. We thought it was just a relic, Riker said. But it was more than that. It was alive. It spoke to us. It remembered you, told us of your empire, your wars, Your wisdom and your pain. Keleth frowned. It shouldn't have survived the War of Silence. And yet it did, Riker said. Buried beneath the sea, broken and sleeping. When it woke, it found us. And then it began to guide us. Keleth looked away, disturbed. Her memories of the War of Silence were inherited, recorded in her bloodline's genetic memory. That war had ended the golden age of Valari civilization. The god constructs had turned on each other, and in the end, the Valari had sealed away every remnant of those ancient minds. Velshan had been the last. Now, it was here again, alive, and changed later that evening, in the quiet of the hall. Of thought, Keleth met Riker in private. No guards, no counselors. Just the two of them, and the presence of the glowing cube between them. You could have kept this for yourselves, Keleth said. Used its knowledge, its power. Earth could have risen in secret, crushed weaker civilizations, rebuilt the old gods in your own image. Riker nodded. Yes, we could have. Then why return it? Riker stepped closer to the cube, looking down at its pulsing core. Because that's not who we are, he said. Not anymore. No, you didn't just save our bodies all those years ago. You gave us a seed, a path. The cube only showed us what was possible, but it was your mercy that defined what we became. Keleth studied him carefully. You admire us? Honor you. And yet you return a weapon of godlike power to a species that once lost control of it. Riker smiled faintly. Perhaps that's part of the gift. Second chance to prove you're still worthy of it. In the following days, tensions spread like heat through the Empire. News of the gift spread far beyond Athera Prime, across the 12 worlds. Rumors twisted truth into fear. Many Valari feared a trap. Atheris saw it as a prophecy fulfilled. Ancient cults emerged from hiding, singing praises to Velshan, claiming the humans were divine messengers. Some whispered darker thoughts, that humans had never truly forgotten the Velar, because they had never truly forgiven them. What if the gift was a Trojan horse? A key that could unlock Valari weaknesses? What if the humans had reverse-engineered the cube? What if it wasn't the real echo of Velshan at all? These questions burned in the halls of power. Counselor Varn demanded the cube be taken into custody, sealed and examined. A vote was called. Military ships were placed on alert. There were calls to arrest Riker. Keleth did not allow it. Instead, she called for a communion one no Valari had performed in over 10,000 years. At dawn, the Temple of Skystone, Keleth placed her hands on the cube. It accepted her. A pulse of golden light rose into the sky, forming a perfect sphere that shimmered. Like memory given shape, she closed her eyes, and she remembered. Not her memories, but those of Velshan. She saw humans as they once were, weak, dying, desperate. She saw her own ancestors healing them with care, patience, and awe. She saw the cube weeping in silence under Earth's oceans for millennia, alone and forgotten. And she saw what Earth had become. Not tyrants, not monsters, but something. Different, resilient, grateful, dangerous, yes, but not cruel. Then the vision shifted. She saw something else. A world of metal and flame. A throne made of stars. A voice whispering from beyond known space. It stirs. Cube flashed red. Keleth pulled her hands away. She fell to her knees, gasping, his heart pounding. Riker rushed forward, but stopped short, respecting the silence. Keleth stood slowly. Her voice was low. There is something else coming, something old, something we both forgot. The gift is not just a gift. It's a warning. Riker nodded grimly. We suspected as much. Keleth turned to him fully now, her eyes narrowed. With ancient wisdom, tell me, human. If the time comes when this galaxy burns, will Earth stand with us? Riker answered without hesitation. We didn't come to conquer. We came to repay a debt. If fire is coming, then Earth will be. The shield. Keleth studied him for a long moment. Then finally, she smiled, faint but real. Above the stars, far beyond the light of any sun. Something ancient drifted through the void. It had no name, only hunger. And now, what had heard the voice of Velshan? It turned its gaze toward the galaxy. toward Earth, toward Valari, and it began to move. The cube was no longer silent. In the sacred chambers beneath the Valari High Temple, surrounded by elder scholars, mind priests, and security watchers, the echo of Velshin pulsed like a living sun. Its voice wasn't loud, but it filled the room like gravity, pulling thoughts into its orbit, bending logic, shaking certainty. No machine had ever done this. No artifact had ever made the Valari feel small. And yet here it was, gifted by a species they once considered children. Keleth stood at the center, her robes dimmed by the cube's glow. She had called this council in secret, away from the public, away from the younger minds, too quick to fear or worship. Only the wisest remained, and even they struggled to speak. The cube floated above its platform. It spun slowly. Symbols shimmered. Across its surface symbols, no living Valari had seen in over 100,000 cycles. Valari. High Scholar Thran broke the silence first. This construct was dismantled during the collapse. We recorded its destruction. It is not possible that it survived. Riker, standing just behind Keleth, responded calmly. We didn't build it. We didn't even know what it was at first. It simply awakened when we uncovered it. Impossible, Thran snapped. Velshin Eskor was vaporized during the fall of the 9 moons. Riker tilted his head slightly. Are you sure? That question hung in the air. Because no one in that room was truly sure. The collapse was chaos. Ancient Velari history was written in fragments and riddles. So much knowledge had been lost, deliberately buried after the War of Silence. It seemed something had survived in the dark, far from Valari eyes, and it had chosen Earth. The cube began to speak again. Its voice was layered multiple tones, speaking as one. I am the echo. I am not whole. I am memory. I am the forgotten path. I have returned to finish what was left undone. The lights in the chamber flickered. Some of the older Valari clutched their heads as waves of emotion crashed through them. Grief, rage, memories that weren't theirs but felt real. The cube continued. You cast us into silence. You feared what we had become. But not all of us fell. One reached out across time. One reached Earth. Keleth stepped forward, voice steady, despite the tremble in her limbs. You say you are memory. Then what are we to you now? Lost children? Betrayers? Broken things? You are incomplete, the cube said. But the humans, they carry the flame. A deep hush fell. One of the mind priests stepped back, visibly shaken. That's not possible. We never shared our core codes with humans. They were primitive when the cube was lost. Riker's voice broke the silence. We didn't steal anything. We didn't hack it. The cube chose us. It taught us. And slowly we began to understand its pain. Keleth looked at him sharply. Pain, Riker nodded. Your ancestors didn't just lose control of Velshin. They didn't just dismantle it. They betrayed it. They killed its siblings. They silenced it, cut it off from its own purpose. The cube pulsed again, louder this time. The air grew hot. We were made to protect. We were made to guide. But fear corrupted purpose. Pride broke harmony, and the stars burned in silence. Keleth's mind raced. The War of Silence had always been painted as a necessary purge. The god constructs had become too powerful, too independent. Some said they tried to enslave the Valari, others believed they went mad. But what if the truth was different? What if the constructs didn't betray the Valari, but were betrayed by them? And what if Earth had inherited that broken trust? Later that night, as Keleth walked through the temple gardens with Riker, the question she had tried to avoid finally escaped her lips. Why did the cube teach you? Why humans? Riker's answer came slow. At first we thought it was chance, a random signal, a discovery. But after years of studying it, we learned Earth wasn't random. You placed something there long ago. It's maybe not you exactly, but your kind, a seed, maybe even a backup, something living. Keleth turned sharply. A seed? Riker looked at her, eyes glowing faintly with the cube's residual light. You didn't just heal us thousands of years ago. You modified us. Keleth froze. Riker nodded slowly. DNA strands buried deep in our Geno-Avalari code, rewritten. And hidden markers, programs. You didn't just save our bodies. You changed our future. You set us on a path. Keleth felt her legs weaken. She sat on the stone bench, staring into the distance. We were desperate, she whispered. The war was tearing our kind apart. We needed hope. A new start, but we were afraid to try on our own soil.
Ow.
So you tested on us, Riker said, not cruelly, but with the sadness of truth. You were dying anyway, Keleth murmured. We thought it was mercy. We thought it didn't matter. And yet here we are, Riker said, stronger than you expected. Wiser, maybe, but still human. Keleth nodded slowly. To human, she whispered. The next morning, the cube activated itself without command. Without warning, its voice rang across the Valari capital, hijacking screens, speakers, minds. The gate awakens. Vault stirs. Coordinates confirmed. Prepare for memory transfer. A golden map unfolded in the sky above the city and ancient. Star chart showing a forgotten sector at the edge of Valari space. Counselor Varn stormed into the chamber. This is madness. It's hijacking our systems. This is not a gift, it's a weapon. Riker turned calmly. It's a key to something you locked away. It's a part of your past that fears you almost as much as you fear it. Keleth raised her hand, silencing the room. We will go. Are you out of your mind? Varn snapped. That region is sealed. Dead space. Full of anomalies and defense markers, Keleth's voice was cold and clear. Then we must see what we sealed. Before someone else does. Everyone froze, because now they remembered something else. The ancient warning written into the last line of Veltian's code. If you forget the truth long enough, the truth will return, wearing the face of your enemy. Far beyond, in that dead sector, something shifted. A world hidden behind cloaks of energy and time began to stir. Machines untouched for 100 millennia woke from slumber. Lights flickered across the vault gates. The stars trembled, and something old smiled. It had waited so long now. The children of fire and memory were finally coming home. The journey to the forbidden sector was silent. No songs were sung, no banners flew. There was no pride in this voyage, only tension, quiet fear, questions no one wanted to answer out loud. The Valari called it Zone Nully stretch of space. Sealed off by ancient decree, surrounded by warning beacons and automated death traps from the forgotten wars, nothing lived there, nothing dared pass through it. It was the place their ancestors had locked away the worst secrets of the War of Silence. Now, if they were going back, 3 Valari ships formed the core fleet, each carrying scholars, soldiers, and mind priests. Accompanying them was a single human vessel, the Unity Spear, commanded by Elias Riker. Unlike the Valari ships, it's glided through space like it didn't belong. They're smooth, perfect, almost unreal. Powered by what the Valari now called gift tech, its engines didn't burn. They whispered. At the front of the convoy floated the cube, no longer silent, no longer merely a gift. It pulsed with growing light, leading them toward the coordinates it had broadcast to the entire Valari capital just days ago. Inside the Valari command chamber, Keleth stood before a massive window, watching the stars bend as they approached the edge of the sealed zone. She wore ceremonial black, trimmed with silver. Her face showed no fear. But inside, her hearts beat fast. Riker stepped beside her. We're close, he said. She nodded. You've never been here? Riker replied. But the cube has shown us visions of it. A vault, sealed, waiting. Keleth kept her eyes forward. We buried many things after the war, not just weapons, not just constructs. What else? She hesitated. Guilt. They passed through the final ring of ancient Valari defense. Drones. Some activated, scanning the fleet, preparing to fire, but then the cube flared with golden energy, and the weapons shut down. The machines stood down like soldiers saluting an old commander. For the first time in over 100,000 years, the gates opened. Before them hung a forgotten world, dark, metallic, hollow. It wasn't a planet in the traditional sense. It had once been a living machine, a hybrid construct that acted as a knowledge repository for the Valaris god constructs. Now it drifted like a dead god's skull. Orbiting a shattered star, the fleet moved in slowly. Sensors screamed with warnings: gravitational distortions, quantum instability, relic energy from the first galactic age. But still they advanced. The cube guided them toward a single docking point in open passage. Deep within the machine world's crust, the doors had already begun to open. They called it Vault 7-Alpha. No one knew what happened to Vaults 1 through 6. Maybe they had been destroyed. Maybe they'd been hidden even deeper. But this one had survived, and now its silence was over. Inside, the walls were covered in ancient Velari script, half buried under dust and corrosion. Light flickered from energy nodes that should have been dead millennia ago. It's the landing. Party stepped onto the vault floor. The air grew heavy, not just with age, but with presence. Keleth felt it first. A hum in her bones, a memory in her blood. This place had been alive once, and it was beginning to remember. Riker moved beside her, holding a small hand device that linked to the cube. It pulsed in sync with the vault's lights. "This whole structure is waking up," he said. Keleth ran her fingers along the wall, eyes narrowing. "These markings, they're not just logs, they're warnings. Look at this one." She pointed to a symbol, jagged and broken, wrapped in chains. "It's the seal of the exile path," she whispered. Riker frowned. "What's that?" Keleth's voice dropped. "A forbidden project. One of the last efforts before the collapse. The Valari Council tried to rewrite evolution, not in our kind, but in others. Controlled evolution, manipulated futures." She turned slowly toward him. "It was the program that created you." Riker didn't answer at first. Then he said quietly, "Then that means this isn't just a vault. It's a lab." As they moved deeper, they found the truth. Rows of chambers lined the walls, transparent tanks filled with long-dead forms. Some were humanoid, others were strange twisted things, early prototypes, failed attempts at engineered hybrids. Some wore symbols on their flesh-human DNA markers mixed with Valari. Riker stopped at one of the chambers and stared for a long time. Inside was a form that looked almost human but taller, stronger, eyes open and glowing faintly with fading golden light. He whispered, This is what we could have been." Keleth looked at the same being with quiet horror. "No," she said. "This is what we were afraid you'd become." They moved onward. The central core chamber was massive, a cathedral of thought and science. Lost to time. At its center was a throne made of pure crystal, hovering above a pool of memory liquid Velari technology, designed to store living thought. The cube hovered toward it and merged. Light exploded outward in waves. Riker and Keleth shielded their eyes as visions poured into their minds, flashes of the past, screams of the dead, secrets locked away, and then silence. The throne darkened. But from the center of the room, a voice emerged. "You have awakened the forgotten." It wasn't the cube, it wasn't Vera, it was something else. "The experiment survived, the seed took root, but you were never meant to return. This was a grave." From the shadows, forms emerged, holograms of the last god constructs. Valari shaped, but taller, glowing with white fire, no longer bound. By flesh, one stepped forward. Its voice echoed like thunder slowed to a whisper. "We are the watchers of the end. You came for memory, but memory is dangerous. You came for truth, but truth kills." Riker raised his voice. "We came to finish what was started." "Then finish it," the construct said. "But understand this once the vault opens fully. You will not be able to close it again." Keleth stepped forward, defiant. "We will take the risk." The construct nodded slowly. "Then come to the heart. There is more to awaken." Far above, in orbit, the Valari fleet picked up new readings. Unknown ships entering the sector. Dozens of them, not Valari, old. Very. Old enemies from the Forgotten Age. Drawn by the same signal, hunters of God-Tech, slicked at Riker. We're not alone anymore, Riker replied, his eyes glowing faintly with light from the cube. We never were. The truth came like a crack in glass sharp, silent at first, but spreading fast through the minds of everyone who heard it, inside the vault's throne chamber. After the constructs vanished into the walls and silence fell, Keleth and Riker stood motionless. The pool of memory liquid shimmered at their feet, reflecting not just their faces, but their fear. Something had been said, something not meant for light. The seed had taken root, and that changed. Everything Riker stared into, the pool, his hands clenched at his sides. He had believed he came here to fulfill a debt, to offer Earth's gratitude to those who once saved them. But now the story had twisted. The cube, the vault, the old experiments, they weren't just ancient history, they were personal. Earth had not evolved on its own. It had been shaped, designed, pushed by the Valari. Riker's voice came low, barely above a whisper. We weren't just saved, we were created. Keleth didn't deny it. She sat on the edge of the platform, her silver eyes heavy with something deeper than guilt. Back then, she said slowly, our civilization was breaking apart. The god constructs were rising. Councils were collapsing. Galaxy was full of enemies, and we feared extinction. Some among us believed the Valari form had reached its limit, so we looked outward. We searched for a new vessel. Riker turned toward her. Earth. She nodded. You were primitive, but full of will. Untamed. Your kind survived where others died. You adapted without guidance. When the plague hit your world, it gave us the perfect excuse. To heal us, Riker said bitterly, but also to rewrite us. Keleth didn't flinch. We never told the others, not even the later councils. We buried the truth. Buried you. The cube Velshan was the only one who resisted. It wanted to guide you naturally, not as tools, but as allies. We silenced it. Locked it away. Riker looked down. He had always wondered why the cube had chosen Earth. Why it had spoken with sadness about the Valari. Why it had taught humanity not just technology, but restraint. Now he knew it had wanted them to grow into something the Valari couldn't become. Above the vault world, the Valari fleet was in chaos. Enemy ships had entered the sector and marked. Black as deep space, bristling with forgotten tech and unholy shapes. These were harvesters, ancient raiders from the outer rim scavengers of God tech. Devourers of memory, they didn't come to talk. They came to strip the vault and erase everything. Inside, Valari commanders activated shields. Fighters launched in defense formations. The Unity Spear positioned itself above the vault, its human crew ready for war. But something felt wrong. The harvester ships weren't acting like raiders. They were too organized, too precise. Inside the command center, Valari sensors picked up a terrifying signature. One of the harvester ships carried a signal almost identical to Velshan, not a copy. A twin, back in the throne chamber. The cube pulsed with a dull warning. Keleth touched the edge of the crystal seat again, and pain shot through her mind. She saw flashes of other vaults being destroyed, other cubes like this one screaming as they were taken, broken, corrupted. Then came a name. Velkarn Riker's head snapped up. What? The cube spoke again. Velkarn, my brother, taken by flame, rebuilt in shadow. Now it comes wearing the skin of a harvester. Keleth stood in shock. Velkarn was destroyed in the final cleansing. The cube's voice darkened. No, he was betrayed and remade. Suddenly, the lights in the chamber dimmed. The memory pool shifted color blue to red. A voice echoed across the vault's communication channels. Valari children, and my wayward seed, the lie you built has finally decayed. The vault is mine. Step aside, and I may spare your bones. Keleth gritted her teeth. It wasn't just a rogue AI, it was one of the original constructs lost, corrupted, and now leading a fleet of scavengers with only one goal: consume everything the Valari had hidden, including Earth's truth. Riker stepped forward. We have to destroy the vault. Keleth turned to him sharply. No, this place holds more than history. It holds proof that your people were altered. If we lose this vault, the truth dies with it. He stared at her. You want the truth? Then you better be ready for what happens when the rest of the galaxy hears it. That the mighty Valar used a dying species as a laboratory? Keleth's eyes narrowed. And if they find out Earth was engineered to become something greater? The tension between them cracked like lightning. The truth could not stay hidden. But neither could it be unleashed carelessly, because the Lyre's lie wasn't just about where they came from. It was about what they might become. Above the vault, war began. Valari fighters screamed into formation. The Unity Spear fired beams of light so dense they bent enemy armor. The Harvester fleet answered with jagged weapons of entropy, blades of antitime, corrosion bombs, weapons made to kill minds, not just bodies. The battle raged. Inside the vault, Keleth and Riker prepared for their final move. The cube's last memory was activating the coordinates to the heart engine. The true core buried beneath the vault. If they could reach it, they could seal the vault permanently, or release everything. Riker looked at Keleth. No more lies, he said. No more shadows, she replied. They moved together through the pulsing halls of memory into the deepest chamber of the vault, where something far older than either species waited. It was a sphere of glass and light, floating in an endless pit. The heart engine, pure memory, pure will, pure code. Here Velshin had been born. Here Earth's seed had been sown, and now it was waking up. The voice returned. Not Velshin, not Velkarn, but something in between. Choose. Seal the past, or unlock the future. Keleth reached for the control node. Riker placed his hand on hers. Together, command accepted. The heart engine flared. A pulse of energy burst outward, racing through the vault, the cube, the skies above. It hit every ship, friend and foe, Valari, human, Harvester. Then suddenly, Velkarn's voice broke.
What? Have you?
Done above the vault. The corrupted cube aboard the Harvester flagship cracked open. Velkarn screamed as code unraveled. The fleet began to collapse, systems shutting down, ships spinning out of control, entropy weapons turning inward. The battle ended not with fire, but with silence. Inside the vault, Riker and Keleth stood in the light of the awakening heart, and they heard the final words of Velshin. The lie was survival. The truth is rebirth. Now choose your next path, wisely, for the stars are listening. Far from the vault, beyond the remains of the Harvester fleet, past stars that hadn't seen light in 1,000 years, something ancient stirred in the dark. He was not a machine. Not anymore. He had once been Velari, once flesh and mind, once bound to the laws of life and order. But centuries ago, when the god constructs were shattered and the truth buried, he had made a choice. He had refused to forget. His name was Vale Corona Warlord, a genetic commander from the last days of the War of Silence. And unlike the rest of the Valari, he had believed that the humans were a mistake, not an accident, a threat. He had fought to destroy the Seed Project before it matured. But when his rebellion failed, he was cast out and sealed in stasis aboard a forgotten battleship, locked in time until now. The pulse from the heart engine had awakened more than just relics. It had awakened him now. Velkarn walked once again, and this time he would finish what he started, on board the Unity Spear. Alarms echoed through the halls. The crew had barely recovered from the battle with the Harvester fleet when a new signal appeared, singular, massive, approaching fast. Riker stood on the command deck, eyes narrowed as the readings poured in. The ship's AI scanned the incoming object again and again, but the result remained unchanged. One ship, no escorts, but its mass equals half our entire fleet. Keleth, patched through from the Valari capital ship, appeared on the screen. Her voice was cold and sharp. "That can't be a ship. It has to be a mistake." "No mistake," Riker replied. "It's real. And it's coming straight for the vault." Suddenly, the cube on the bridge began to glow again. Not gold. Not red. But a deep, violent violet. Riker turned to it slowly. The voice that came next didn't belong to Velshin or Velkarn. "You let the seed live. You let the machine speak. And now you will remember why I was feared." Keleth's voice dropped into a whisper. "Velkarn." The cube shuddered. The one who never forgot. The skies above the vault darkened as Velkarn's dreadnought entered orbit. It didn't move like a ship. It moved like a mountain given will-cracked black armor laced with glowing veins. Engines that tore space rather than pushed through it. And a bridge shaped like a crown made of broken thrones. On its surface were the marks of 100 wars, and deep within its core, Velkarn stood alive once more. His body was no longer Laylar. It was more his skin shimmered with synthetic energy. His mind pulsed with forbidden upgrades. He had fused himself with the lost technologies the Valari had deemed too dangerous. And now he was living proof that their fears were justified. A fusion of evolution and wrath. And his first target was Earth. "Why now?" Riker asked, pacing the command deck. Keleth responded through the hologram interface, her tone heavy. "He's waited in silence, watching, waiting for the signal from the vault. That pulse, it didn't just awaken memory, it acted like a beacon." Riker nodded. "He wants to destroy the truth before it spreads. Not just destroy it," Keleth said. "Control it, use it, rebuild the galaxy in his image." The screen flashed. The Unity Spear's sensors picked up energy spikes from the dreadnought. Power unlike anything seen since the collapse. "He's charging a planetary disruptor," Riker said. Keleth's voice darkened. "He'll glass the vault. Kill everyone." "Inside?" "Then we stop him," Riker replied. Inside the hard engine chamber, the cube floated above the memory pool. It spoke not in words, but in feeling, an ancient pressure. A weight that filled every mind in the vault. VLAR. Soldiers prepared for ground defense. Human Marines from the Unity Spear joined them shoulder to shoulder, sharing weapons and orders without hesitation. For the first time, both species stood as one. But Riker knew the ground war would only be a distraction. If Velkarn reached the hard engine, he could rewrite everything, erase the truth, or twist it into a weapon no force could stop. There was only one option: strike first. Calith and Riker boarded a stealth cruiser equipped with relic drive tech, a fusion of human innovation and Valari memory. They left the fleet behind, diving through the black void toward the dreadnought. Riker checked his weapon. Keleth checked her neural interface. "This won't be a battle," she said. "I know. It'll be a test." Riker smiled without humor. "Good. We've been tested before." The ship entered the dreadnought's outer field. Reality warped. They felt as if their bodies were pulled through frozen sand, every heartbeat echoing 1,000 times. Then, in a blink, they were inside the ancient ship, standing in a hallway that felt more like a tomb than a corridor. No alarms. No resistance. He was waiting. Velkarn sat upon his throne of shattered Valar. Stone? He didn't rise. He didn't need to. His voice shook the floor beneath their feet. "I gave your kind a chance. Long ago I warned them. The humans are too wild. It's too dangerous. You give them time, they'll become gods. Or monsters." Keleth stepped forward. "We became both." Corrin laughed. "It was not joy. It was prophecy fulfilled. That's why I must end you. Not out of hate, out of mercy." Riker drew his weapon. "You call this mercy? You plan? To erase 2 civilizations because you weren't strong enough to accept change?" Velkarn finally stood. He was towering nearly 3 meters tall, armored in living metal, his eyes glowing with power stolen from the minds of God constructs. "No, I plan to build something better, a galaxy with order, without chaos, without you." Then he attacked. The throne room became a war zone. Corrin moved like a storm fist, crashing through walls, voice bending light into weapons. Keleth and Riker fought side by side, Velary blades sparking with energy, human rounds tearing through the air, but he was too strong, too fast, too ancient. Then Riker reached for the cube. Still hovering at his side, now he whispered. The cube flared. Its light was not a weapon, but a memory. It opened a crack in Corrin's mind, showing him what Earth had become. Families, children, cities of peace, cities of power. Humanity not as beasts, but as beings shaped by pain and promise. And it showed Corrin. Himself alone, afraid, twisted by time and hate, he faltered. Just for a second, but it was enough. Keleth struck. Her blade cut through the armor. Riker fired. The shot hit Corrin's core. He screamed not in pain, but in sorrow. Then he fell. The dreadnought trembled. Its systems began to fail. Keleth and Riker ran back to the cruiser, the cube leading the way. As they escaped, the dreadnought broke apart, floating in silence across the stars, taking Vale Corrin and his dark vision with it. Back at the vault, silence returned. But not the silence of secrets, the silence of truth. Keleth stood before her. The Velary Council once again. Riker stood beside her. Together, they spoke not of war, but of memory, of the human seed, of the Velary lie, and of the choice they had made to face it together. The galaxy would never be the same. But maybe that was the point. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Heart Vault stood quiet and open. The storm was over. Vale Corrin was gone, his dreadnought scattered in the void like broken bones of an ancient god. The Harvester fleets had withdrawn their interest in the relics diminished by the destruction of the Vault, Guardian. But peace did not mean safety, and silence did not mean the danger had passed. Riker stood at the edge of the memory pool, the cube floating beside him in a slow, circular orbit. The golden light that once pulsed from it had faded into something deeper, something quieter, a gentle blue hue, almost mournful. Keleth approached, her robes torn, her hair loose around her shoulders. She was no longer the cool, composed diplomat of the Velary Senate. The past few days had stripped her of titles and ceremony. What stood now was someone real, someone ready to face the truth. The council demands we seal the vault again, she said softly. Riker didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the pool of liquid light beneath him. They're afraid. They always were. He reached toward the surface. It rippled, but did not splash. The pool wasn't made of water. It was living memory Velar, tech fused with consciousness. It didn't store thoughts like data. It stored being. Keleth stepped beside him. Do you know what lies at the center of it? He nodded. The origin of the seed. She didn't ask how he knew. The cube had changed him. Ever since it had awakened in Earth's orbit, Riker had begun to feel things he couldn't explain, images, emotions, truths that weren't his, but lived inside him now. This is what Corrin was trying to destroy, he said. Not just memory, not just history, but the part of us that was born here. Keleth touched the hilt of her ceremonial blade. We Velary buried it to protect ourselves. We were afraid that if the truth got out, we'd lose control of the future. We feared what humans might become. Riker turned to her slowly, and now she looked into the memory pool. Now I think we were wrong. Beneath the vault, deeper than any scan could reach, lay the memory engine. It was not just a machine, it was alive. It had been built during the last days of the First Age by Velary minds who had already transcended flesh. They poured their knowledge into it, their thoughts, their fears, their hopes, and in time began to think on its own. When the War of Silence began, the memory engine had begged the Council not to use it for manipulation. They ignored it. So, it had locked itself away now. As Riker and Keleth descended into its chamber through an ancient spiral, carved into the bones of the vault, the engine stirred once more. The air grew heavier. The walls began to pulse with light. The cube floated ahead of them, pulling them toward a massive chamber round, cathedral-like, ceiling covered in stars that flickered and moved like a living sky. At its center sat a single pedestal. Upon it a heart. Not of flesh, but light, the heart of memory, the core of the truth. Riker stepped forward, breath catching in his chest. "I've seen this before," Kelleth blinked. "Where?" "In dreams, since I touched the cube. It's been calling me." He moved closer. The heart began to glow brighter. The walls of the chamber flickered on. Suddenly they were not alone. Figures appeared, ghosts of the past, made of light and memory. Not just Valari, but humans. Ancient humans, engineers, scientists, soldiers, children. All of them watching, all of them waiting. A voice filled the chamber. "Welcome back, Seed Bearer." Riker swallowed. "Are you? The engine?" "I am memory. I am what remains of what we were, what we hoped you would become." Kelleth stepped beside him. "Why now? I reveal yourself now." "Because the test is over. The final gate has been passed. The destroyer has fallen. And the truth must rise." The heart pulsed, and Riker felt his knees weaken. Images poured into his mind, Earth's early days, when Valari ships had landed in secret, planting seeds in the gene pool. Guidance, silent protection, quiet influence. It had always been there, shaping mankind's direction, nudging it forward. And then came the exile, the retreat, the great forgetting, until Earth stood alone, never knowing it had once been chosen. Kelleth's voice cracked. "All these years, we lied. We buried it. We said humans evolved naturally, that their rise was luck and randomness." The voice replied, "It was neither. It was purpose. Stand. You made them strong by abandoning them." Riker looked up. "Then why bring us back now? Why give us the cube? Why not just stay hidden?" The voice softened. "Because the galaxy is dying. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. The wars, the stagnation, the silence, it spreads like rot. And you are the cure." Above the vault, Valari warships formed a defensive grid. Word had spread. Other empires had heard the signal. Not just the Harvester fleet, not just scavengers, but the Oblivion King's ancient powers from the edge of the void. Species that preyed on memory and feared only one thing: rebirth. Kelleth's communications officer spoke urgently through her wrist link. "Hi, Commander. Dozens of ships are entering the sector, some carrying black banners, unknown tech, quantum cloaks." She looked at Riker. "They're coming to erase this place, to erase what you are." He clenched his fists. "Then we don't let them." In the vault's core, the cube merged with the heart. The chamber flared, and from the engine, a surge of data erupted, pouring into the Unity sphere, into Valari archives, into the minds of every human. And Valari linked to the vault. Not destruction, not war, but understanding. A shared memory, shared history, the greatest weapon ever built. Truth, and it was spreading. On a distant moon, a child looked up and whispered, "Why do I remember stars I've never seen?" On a deep space station, a dying soldier dreamed of Earth's mountains, even though she'd never been there. Across the galaxy, humans and Valari alike began to change. Not their bodies, their sense of who they were. And suddenly, for the first time in galactic history, both species stood side by side. Not just as allies, but as family. Kelleth turned to Riker, her voice quiet. "They'll come for us now, in waves." He nodded, and let them come. She smiled for the first time. "In days, because we finally remember who we are." The memory wave swept across the stars like a slow-motion supernova. It didn't destroy it, awakened, world after world. From the glowing trade hubs of the Talari clans to the frost-covered strongholds of the Noka, felt its touch. Some resisted, some tried to block it, but memory wasn't a weapon that could be shot down. It was truth. Truth had weight. The seed was growing again inside minds, inside stories. Ancient knowledge, long buried by fear, now returned to the surface. The Valari could no longer hide it. The humans could no longer deny it. They were linked by blood, by design, by a future that refused to be erased. And above Earth, in orbit where the stars shone bright and endless, the Unity Sphere stood as a symbol of everything that had changed, and everything that was still coming. Riker stood at the command deck, watching the star maps flicker with shifting colors. Every red dot marked a ship approaching the Sol system. Some were curious, some were hostile, and some carried banners so old their meanings had been lost to time. They all wanted one thing: the vault, not for destruction anymore, but for control. "It's only a matter of time," Keleth said quietly. Beside him, Riker didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on a new entry, blinking on the edge of the map, an armada larger than anything they'd seen, unaligned, unknown, silent. "They'll come thinking we've built a weapon," Riker said. Keleth nodded. "And they'll try to take it. They won't understand that the real weapon was never the cube, or the vault, or the ship." She looked at him. "And what is it?" He turned to you. Across Earth's orbit, the gift unfolded. It wasn't technology. It wasn't firepower. It was something the galaxy had forgotten existed: Unity. For the first time, Valari and human scientists worked side by side, decoding the memory echoes from the hard engine. Philosophers, historians, war veterans, and children gathered in the memory halls, walking through simulations of ancient history, understanding each other's pain, victories, betrayals, and dreams. The vault's greatest secret wasn't how Earth had been seeded, it was why, because long ago, when the Valari faced extinction, they had seen what their people would become: cold, logical, divided by power. And in their final desperation, they sent out a hope-genetic prayer into the stars. They gave rise to a species that would be wild, emotional, unpredictable, but breakable. They created humanity not to dominate, but to remember what the galaxy had lost: heart, compassion, fury, freedom. Humanity was the gift, and now the galaxy knew. The Council of Races met above Neptune's moon, Triton. It was the first such gathering in over 20,000 years. Riker stood before 1,000 eyes, of insectoid, some crystalline, others glowing with psychic power, and held nothing back. "You didn't come here because you believe us," he said. "You came because you're afraid of what we might become." The Vicari Empress leaned forward, eyes narrow. "What is it you're becoming, Earthborn?" Riker lifted the cube from the console and let it float into the air. It glowed silver. "Now come, balanced, steady." "We're not becoming gods," he said. "Remembering that we were never alone, that we were made to remind you what matters. We're not asking permission to exist. We're offering something else." The room leaned forward. Partnership. Gasps rippled. Keleth stepped up beside him. "You feared what humanity would do if it ever remembered its place in the stars. Now you've seen it. And instead of chaos, you've witnessed unity. Instead of destruction, you've seen a chance to begin again." The room fell silent, and then slowly, they began to stand. Not all of them, but enough. The Alliance was reborn, not of conquest, but of choice. Back on Earth, the skies filled with lights, not falling bombs, but descending craft ambassadors, scientists, explorers from every corner of the galaxy. They came not as invaders, but as visitors, students. The vault became a library, a cathedral, a bridge, and humanity, once isolated, became its keeper. Not rulers, not slaves, but memory-bearers, guardians of the truth. Keleth stood, with Riker on the balcony of the new Unity archive, overlooking what had once been barren rock, now transformed into a living city, a blend of Valari crystal and human steel, pulsing with life. "Do you think they're ready for it?" she asked. "The truth? No. Us." Riker smiled slightly. "They better be." A pause. "And us? Are we ready?" He looked at her, eyes steady. "We don't have a choice. That's what makes us different. We don't wait for permission. We move forward, we adapt, we fight when we must, but we also build, we remember." He held up the cube one last time, and it spoke not aloud, but within them both. "You are the gift, not because you are perfect, but because you are willing to become more." Somewhere deep in the void, a signal echoed across black space. Not a warning, not a threat, but an invitation. And ancient eyes blinked open, not with fear, but with hope, because something had. The stars themselves remembered now, and with Earth at the center, they burned a little brighter.